Hola, Kamala Mobanele, and this is The Mentality. Namhlanje ngiphethe uGrootman lami. I consider this guy a brother to me, but here's why I'm going to be talking to him. He has spent 6 years doing hard drugs, but that's not his whole story. The next story, Wuti, he has been off drugs for 5 years. Manje, he is an athlete, he is a writer, and he's also a hip-hop artist. So today, uzungithatha angifake estradini sagijima. Unjani futhi?
Shapunjani mfethu?
Mnandi. No, yeah, kumnandi ukuhlangana nawe man.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, and I've been watching ukuthi uyabangena.
We had a one-on-one.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Strong.
Okay, so today Sabangena.
Yeah.
How many? 5, 10?
I think today we should just keep it at a minimum of 5. You know, 5 kilometers is a standard distance for a runner.
Yes.
So we are just going to be just running around Ekasi Kona on my just normal running route. And just have a conversation while we're at it. Yeah,
100%. No, UGK, story sakhe, like I love his stories, and you will know why I love his stories. So check you out, Master Tukishim. Hola. Hola, Sibuyile, and yeah, that was a run and a half. Yeah, man. Pega, like I said before, GK, and the story that we're gonna look into, manje, is let's get into addiction. So, GK, Prudwam.
Yes, my brother.
Addiction. I hear a lot of people are talking about addiction. I'm addicted, or we see people who sit addicted. What exactly is addiction?
I'm glad you've asked that question, Banele, because there is a lot of misinformation, a lot of misconceptions and misperceptions on what an addiction is and how you can identify or tell when someone is addicted, you know. So what an addiction is that it is a brain disease, all right? And it's characterized by certain behaviors. So for an example, it's when somebody has attraction that they cannot control to a certain behavior or to a certain substance. It could be food, it could be drugs, it could be gambling, hence I say behavior. You understand? So it gets to a point where they are now obsessed about it and they can't control the urge to engage in that behavior or use that certain substance, you know, and then at some point then it gets to where it directly affects their lives and as well as that of others. So in a nutshell, that's what an addiction is.
Yeah. So now with your experience with the addiction, right, where you are addicted to hard substances, right? How bad is the situation and how easy was it to access drugs like Lokshin?
Wow. It was, for me personally, it was extremely easy to access some drugs. We grew up in a time where we knew about drugs, we heard about drugs, but we had never seen them, you know. But when I started using, it was extremely easy to access some drugs because I was actually introduced by a best friend. A friend of mine who was, you know, whom I grew up with. So this guy one day just pulled up the bag out of his pocket, you know, and then here was this white powdery substance, which, you know, he said would give me energy and it will boost my creativity. And then that's how I fell into drugs. But at this stage, it has even become easier because now drugs are everywhere in our communities. So literally every household is directly or indirectly impacted by the scourge of addiction. So yeah.
Abuya about drug, according to what you know, where do you think these things come from?
Well, they either are imported. Some of the drugs are imported, you know, from outside countries, and then believe it or not, Banel, we actually have people that cook their own drugs right in the middle of our communities, So there's meth labs popping everywhere in our communities. So yeah, so you can literally combine, you know, chemicals and cook a drug.
Mhm.
it's
And
it's as easy as that.
where do they get this education on how to like make drugs? What's
We're living in the age of the internet where there's lots of information accessible up literally about anything.
Mm,
So maungaya ku YouTube right now
mm,
and just search how to cook meth.
mm.
There'll be tons of videos.
Yeah, I know.
So it's that easy.
So, you were introduced to drugs by a friend.
Yes, I was.
Why do you think they introduced you? What did they stand to gain?
Well, coming to think about it and having thought about it for a very long time, initially I thought, at the early stages of my recovery, I thought he wanted to sabotage me, so to speak, because I had a lot of things going on at the time. I had, I was a budding rapper, and I had a decent job, so there were great and positive things that were happening in my life. So I thought he was sabotaging me, so to speak. But now I realize Ogutnaye himself, he he really believed with drugs will give me an urge in life, and it will really boost me, uh, my creativity, and I'd be able to do things that I can't necessarily do on a sober mind. So I don't think he meant harm. I think he truly believed Oguti, whatever drug he was giving me at the time is only part that urge. And it did. That's
Yeah,
another thing. It
yeah.
did at the early stages, of my use. So I remember, man, being completely blown away by the high, getting this euphoric feeling like this great sense of invincibility, like absolutely nothing could just come in the way. And my creativity was just man, sky high.
Yeah.
Excuse the pun, by the
Yeah.
way. So, but then obviously it gets to a point where now the drug Igbonisa like its true nature, and
Mm.
then everything else just from there on, it's
It
just
goes down.
goes down, my brother.
And you do say, Ugutin, when you started drugs, the high was amazing, but you only realized, Uguti, it came at a higher cost. What? So now we are gonna come back and we're gonna get into exactly what was the cost Uchike had to pay for that euphoric feeling that he had when he started drugs. So don't go anywhere, Sabuya now. Sure. Yes, you're still on. This is the mentality Kamala Mobanele Reo Nklomeno Chike. And before we went on an ad break, Uchike told us ukuthi he started drugs and it was euphoric, bukumnandi, but there was a higher cost. So now, Chike, now again, the euphoria has you, right? So when did things start to turn for you?
Well, the obviously njengoba I described before we went into an ad break ukuthi at first it gave me this euphoric high, and then about a year into drugs, because I was using them gradually over the weekend, and then I started using them regularly now. I started getting these intense cravings. Um, and then I started skipping work, and um, my behavior just totally changed. So basically, isikhathi masihamba wena B, it got to a point where um, I was no longer feeling high anymore. The high was not as intense anymore, and I needed to use more of the substance to get a certain level of euphoria, you know. And they call it chasing a high. So I began chasing this high now. And when you start chasing the high, guess what you do? You neglect every other thing happening, or every other, and you ignore and neglect every aspect of your life, pretty much, and you solely focus on the substance. So and with me chasing the high, my life just fell apart.
So when you were chasing this high,
Mm.
what excuses were you making in your mind? Were you seeing these things being lost? And what were you saying to yourself?
Well, at the time, honestly speaking, um I was not conscious of my behavior. I was not aware that I was developing this strong attachment and dependency to this substance. At the time, I just felt like I had everything under control, and me pawning my fancy gadget, or me, for an example, stealing money or borrowing money from a friend. I really thought I still had everything under control, and I thought I could replace that gadget. I thought I could replace the money I borrowed from a friend. So it was only as time went by that I realized that, hey man, I had sold all of my clothes, I had sold all of my gadgets. I was completely left with nothing. So what I'm saying to you, Banele, is that when you are now entrenched in the pits of addiction, you don't even make conscious excuses to yourself to say, okay, um, I know I'm sort of, addicted to this substance, but I'm using it for this reason. It's not even that. You just think, here's this thing that's giving me an edge. I need to buy it. I have this thing right here next to me. How about I sell it, or how about I steal this money? And you do it with no remorse, because the drugs have just completely consumed you.
A lot of people say ukuthi, ah no, I have it under control, right? And you also thought ukuthi you had it under control.
I did.
And then you sold izinto zakho, and then all of a sudden you had nothing.
Yes.
What was your worst experience guma drugs? Like what was that one time where you thought, I yabona manje, I'm done with this?
Well, okay. I'm glad you've asked that question, because my worst experience is actually what led to my recovery and my sobriety. So my worst experience was when I got arrested for the second time for drug possession. So I had stolen a large sum of money from a friend who was also somebody I used with, and then I just went on a wild
A bender.
yeah, nje, just on a wild spree, nje, because I had this sum of cash. So it was in 2017, in October, the third. That's was the day when I got arrested for drug possession. So I just purchased 3 bags of crystal meth from a dealer, and so as I was walking down, then kwasa le kara ya bogata. I think they were watching me from a distance as I stepped out of the drug
Dealer's
dealer's
house.
house. Yes, and then they arrested me. They knew I had something on me. So I realized at that point, Nebanele, while I was sitting at that holding cell, ukuthi man, my life had spiraled out of control. There was absolutely no way I could regain control without, you know, leaving drugs. We start stopping the use. So, yeah, because I realized, Guti, no matter what I do, drugs at the end of the day, a winner, so to speak. You understand? They had control over me. I could not control them, no matter how hard I tried to. So, and that's when I realized, no, I need to do something. So it was sobering for me, you know, ukuthi ngiboshwe. And at the time I didn't realize it, but yeah, ithe masengifika lapha ku prison cell, I had time to think about my life, the things that I have done over the years. Remember, this is 2017 now, Banel, and I started using 2011, you know, and I was in my mid 30s, because I'm 40 now. I was 35 then, you know, with nothing to show for it. So yeah, so that was a turning point in my life. My worst experience turned out to be my best experience at the end of the day.
All right. Uchike Mfethu, yeah, no. You know, you can't listen to this story and not feel emotional about it, you know. So, but what we're gonna do now is he's told us, Uguti, what happened. Now, when we come back, we're gonna get into what he's currently doing now and how he actually stopped all of this and took a new road. Sure. Okay, we're back at it, and ngiphethe uGK lana, and we're talking about his experience with a drug addiction. One interesting fact that completely blows my mind, Uguti, he started drugs at 29, whereas we think, a lot of us, I'm sure you are aware of that,
Yeah.
Uguti, we think Uguti ama drugs waqala maybe
mostly
at
affect the
16, yeah, usasentwana. So you started at 29.
Yes, my brother.
How come at that late age?
Well, you're right by saying, Guti, there is this perception, general perception, that drugs, they affect people who are young. And I started them at an age where I was supposed to have figured everything out in life, so to speak, you know. So I never thought, first of all, Banela, it's important that I mention this. I used to dread drugs. I remember in my early 20s to mid 20s, you know, I had a brief exposure of somebody who obega use drugs, and the group of friends ebeng nabo at the time, we couldn't understand how this person fell into drugs, especially at such a late stage, so to speak, in life, in their 20s, you know. So it's only when I started using that I understood ukuthi addiction essentially, njengoba bengitshelile ngeke ngayidescribe at the beginning, ukuthi it is when somebody is attracted to a behavior or a substance in an uncontrollable way. But also, what people don't know about it is that there is a genetic factor as well, that, you know, is attached to addiction. So what I mean by that, ukuthi mawumuntu, you are susceptible. So in a way, your DNA could contain a gene addiction. So just to put what I'm saying into context, when if, for an example, your father was an alcoholic and they gave birth to you, they pass on that gene addiction to you. So you grow up being prone to have this attraction that is uncontrollable to a certain behavior or a substance. And you will find that somewhere in your life, if you can't cope with certain issues, if maybe you are stressed, you succumb to stress, you succumb to anxiety, to the pressures of life, and you can't deal with them in a way that is effective you could easily be lured into drugs
Mm.
because there is that promise ukuthi it will provide you with an escape
From that situation.
from that situation.
Yeah.
And
So-
which it does at the beginning.
Yes. So,
Yes.
manje, because you're talking about that gene, right?
Mm.
And being susceptible to addiction.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be addiction yento embi,
Mm.
which is maybe drugs, alcohol.
Mm.
You can be addicted to izinto that are good, right?
No, actually, that's
Okay.
that's another futhi misconception that people have.
Mm.
You know, ukuthi there is good addiction and there is bad addiction.
Mhm.
When we say addiction, already it means it's bad.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand?
Yes.
So, addiction, like I say, is characterized by loss of control. So when someone is addicted to a behavior or a substance, it means they can't control themselves. You know, and it is characterized by narrowing of interests that are healthy. So in a way, you focus on the addiction and you neglect other areas of your life. So, for an example, I've heard people, because now I'm a runner, and I post a lot about my running on Facebook and on my other social media pages, and when people engage with me, that often say, "Oh, well, it's a good thing now that you are addicted
To running.
you
Yeah,
know,
'cause
and I
that's
always
what I
correct
think.
them. No, I'm not addicted to running, because like I say, when the addiction, it means you will focus on this behavior and neglect everything
else.
So
Okay.
if, for an example, right now I was addicted to running, I'd wake up literally every day and all I would do is run, and I wouldn't go to work.
Oh, yes, I get it
I wouldn't
now,
be
yeah.
able to have healthy relationships
Relationships.
with friends and family, because my sole focus would be with running. Because it means now I can't cope,
Without doing
it. So, yeah.
So how did you get out of this problem, Yama drugs? How did you do it? Because it's not an easy thing to do.
It's
How did
definitely
you
not.
do it?
It's definitely not. But njengoba ngishilo ukuthi my wake up call was when I got arrested, right? So what I didn't mention ukuthi, when I stole that large sum of money from a friend, my parents had also kicked me out of their home. So I was practically living in the street. And when I was, thank goodness, I didn't serve time. I was released, on free bail a few days later after my arrest. And I had no choice but to go back home. Thank goodness again, because I had already had an awakening while I was sitting in that prison cell with So I went back home, and my parents, Bategimi, they'll only accept me provided that I'm willing to get professional help, which I was willing to get, So we began then the process of getting me the help that I needed, So what I did is, first thing I did was to visit a local clinic where a social worker referred me to a government-funded rehabilitation facility called Empilweni Comeback Mission, which is located La Eparakwanat. So that's another thing engifuna ukutoucha on kuyo briefly Banele ukuthi a lot of people, they even those who want to get help, they don't know where to begin. Guys, there's help out there for you. There's facilities like Abosanka, where you can go as an outpatient if maybe we are sebenza, and you can get counseling there, and you can participate in support groups like about NA meetings and all these other groups, support systems that they have for you to stop using. And then also another thing, visit your local clinic. Ask to speak to a social worker there. Tell them your problem, problem, addiction, and they will definitely be able to refer you to a facility that is obviously government sponsored, where you don't even need to pay a single cent. So so kunalento ukuthi ama-rehab ayadura. That's why I'm touching on
Yes.
this. Yabo. So ukubuyela futhi kule question obongibuze yona ukuthi ngiphume kanjani. So ngicine ngayi rehab wena Banele ne.
Yeah.
Khona lapho nga-admit empilweni where I was admitted for a period of 2 months where I underwent an intense and comprehensive rehabilitation program that entailed me doing this 12-step program. So what a 12-step program is that it is a program designed to equip you with the tools and the skills that you need to cope with an addiction and also to maintain sobriety. Because remember, now that you are recovering,
Yes.
you need to know how to stay sober. Because for the longest time, you knew how to stay high,
Yeah.
but you don't know how to stay sober, and you need those skills and those tools. So hence I always place emphasis on getting a professional assistance when dealing with addiction. As much as you may stop on your own, I don't necessarily advise it, to use a willpower when it comes to addiction, because Vanele, there's underlying issues with most addicts. That's why we use drugs in the first place. And you need a professional to guide you and assist you to unpack all of these
Those
underlying
issues, yes.
underlying issues so that they can be dealt with in a manner that is not self-destructive, so
Yeah.
to speak.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, on account of time, right? We're gonna have to cut it short. But look, we're gonna have a longer version of this on my YouTube channel, and we're just gonna continue the conversation.